Hey, love, you are listening to the No Boss of Me podcast, and I'm your host, Leanne Hanaway, money coach, wealth educator, and chartered professional accountant. This is a show that helps ambitious women grow and invest their money without shame, worry, or doubt so that they can live the life that they love. Every week, we will be discussing investing to build wealth, navigating personal finance as women, and talking with women entrepreneurs and change makers who are leaving their mark on our world. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today, I'm joined by Natacha Pennycooke, who is an award-winning psychotherapist, international speaker, and clinical consultant. I'm so happy to be speaking to her on not only the work that she does, but the business that she created.
Hey, Leanne, and everyone listening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited that we're here having this conversation. I think this is a good time that we're having this conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, I love talking about mindset, particularly the mindset of an entrepreneur. But before we go there, you kind of started off as an employee, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how, you made the transition now to entrepreneur business owner? What was happening in wanting to move from employee to entrepreneur?
Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting because when I had moved to Ontario, I was looking for those of you who may know, I'm born and raised in Montreal. So I moved to Ontario and here I was fresh out of grad school as a new master's level counseling psychologist. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to find this job. I'm going to find my dream job. And I was lucky enough to start working at a group practice with one of my fantastic colleagues. And even while I was doing that, right, working in a group practice, I was like, I still need to find my dream job. Finally, I found a job that I thought was my dream job. As you said, I was an employee. I was like all in. I was like, yes, this is where I'm going to be. And I was there for 1 year. And while I was there, it was probably the hardest working experience that I've ever had. It was it was a toxic experience, really. I know a lot of you out there listening have been in toxic work environments and workspaces, and it does something to your mental health, right? It takes
Mhm.
away your sense of self, your self confidence. And in that year that I was there, near the end of the year, I started recognizing that here I am as a therapist working with the population and the clientele, but I'm also struggling with my own anxieties. My last day there, I had a full fledged panic attack.
Mhm.
And if anyone has struggled with anxiety and panic, you know that it's this like overwhelming dread and doom and this feeling of fear that comes over you. And I will remember this so vividly that I had seen my last client at the place where I was working at. And then I had this feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do this again. This was supposed to be my dream job. What is happening? What's going on? What am I going to do? And I think it was in that moment, recognizing the signs of having a panic attack and all of that, able to turn to a fantastic colleague of mine to help me to calm down and to process. And then recognizing afterwards, I'm like, you know what? This may be my last client working here in this job as an employee, but I'm going to go and create my dream job. And I think a lot of you out there probably resonate with this, right? It's like we get into spaces and we think that someone else has to create it for us. We have to go in and work with someone else. I was at the point where, no, I'm going to create it. And now's the time and I'm ready. So, you know, this whole business that I created and the fantastic team of therapists that we have working in the team, it's really was created and born out of not a really great experience. But I'm actually so thankful now, looking back on the other side of it. I'm thankful for that experience because it was the catalyst to building what I'm building now.
Yeah, I think that experience is not as uncommon as, sometimes people would lead us to believe, but to be in environments where it is not highlighting your best self. I mean, I've definitely been there, having that panic attack of like, I've never felt my heart racing so much and not really knowing what that was, what that was. And it's really interesting that that motivated you to start your own. Because for some people, it might be either for worse, maybe I'm going to stick it out here and maybe things will change, or maybe I'll go somewhere else. But now your thought was, I'm going to create. my dream job, which I think is
Yes.
really powerful. And it's an avenue that a lot of folks need to really think about, listeners are thinking about. And um, so what were some of the major fears and doubts that you wrestled with in this transition?
Oh my goodness. I feel like throughout this transition, the fears, the doubts. So that's exactly it. It's like these fears, these doubts, the confidence thinking that I'm not good enough, that I can't do this, wondering if this is meant for me. Like all of these things are things that honestly, they're still there. It's just they've upped a level, right? And what I mean they've upped a level is that every couple of months is recognizing, oh, I'm in a different sphere now from where I started, right? I'm looking back now almost 2 years now or three, going on 3 years. And it's like, oh my goodness, look at all of this. Look at everything that has been created over this time. And of course, sometimes the fear is there, sometimes the worry is there, sometimes self doubt is there. So I think it's recognizing really that keep going, right? It's to
Yeah.
keep going. And, having conversations like this are great because it really makes me think back, but really keep going and
Yeah.
connect with people. And I think those are really the big fears. The fear if I can do it, the fear if I'm good enough to do it, the fear if I am um not so much as smart enough, but if I have the skill to do it. One of the big things that have been coming up more of lately is I don't know what I don't know. It's
Mm.
figuring out like where can I go to get the information that I don't know.
You made me really think about, some of the fears and doubts that come up for new entrepreneurs and really came up for myself. Also leaving, corporate thinking when those fears and doubts surfaced, well, maybe I should go back, and then quickly like being like, no, 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 that's not what I want. Um, I'm interested in from like your point of view, in psychotherapy, like what are some of the tools that you can use to manage those doubts and thoughts?
Yeah. So one of the things that I specialize in is anxiety and emotional regulation. So I love having these conversations. So, the self doubt really comes in because we have not done something before. So it's really that we don't have it set up in our mind yet that we can pull from historical information. So
Mhm.
the doubt may come in when we're like, but I haven't done this before. And look at that person. And look at that person. And look at that person. They're doing all these great things. I don't have it. So I say this to everyone out there when those doubts, not if, because the doubts will come, when the doubts come in, just recognize that, hey, you are capable of doing this and start small. Start with whatever that idea is, that goal is, and start building from there and let yourself know that do not give in to those negative self talk, right? Those negative things that we say to ourselves, that we do to ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves. Ask yourself when you catch yourself. So the first thing is, being able to identify, right? Catching yourself if and when you start saying those really awful things to yourself. And ask yourself, would I talk to my best friend this way? Would I talk to my child this way? Will I talk to my partner this way? Would he talk to someone else that way? And if the answer is no, you have to be very careful to change the ways in which you were talking to yourself. Because we do it. We all do it. We say these awful, self deprecating, belittling things to yourself, but we would never talk to our children that way or our loved ones that way. So we have to be really careful on the way that we speak of ourselves as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I often talk to a lot of women about how they are they talking to other people, right? And how they are talking to other people is also how they should really be kind of talking to themselves. So I do believe that's really important. And in who you're talking to, do you have any thoughts
Yes.
in like, especially as like first generation entrepreneurs, you might be the first in your family who, is not going after an employment situation, but starting out on your own. How do you manage sometimes people with the best intention telling you things that aren't going to really get you that step forward in your business growth?
Yeah. So I say this as well that you need to go to the people in your life who are supportive for the thing that you're looking for support with,
Mm,
right? Because so many times we may want support from mom, dad, auntie, uncle, but they may not be able to support us in that one thing, right? So for entrepreneurship. It may be that, oh, I want to go to auntie and uncle to have this conversation, but I know that's not an area that they have experience with or they're comfortable with. So let me not go to them and set myself up for disappointment. Let me find a network of other entrepreneurs, other women business owners, other people who are starting out in their entrepreneurship journey and go to that group. It's really important that whatever it is that you're trying to do, that you have a supportive network. The great thing is we're not alone in a lot of the stuff that we're doing, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we think that we are, and sometimes we think that, no, I don't want to share my stuff because someone might take it or steal it, right? A lot of us, we get scared. And I say us because I've been there. But it's starting to recognize like, I really need to create a community of entrepreneurs, of women, of business owners, of whomever that I can turn to and say, hey, I'm looking for an assistant. How do we go about do this and do this?
Mhm.
What questions do I ask? What do I need an assistant for? What task could I offload onto an assistant, right? Like these are questions about like building team that might not be easy for family members to have conversation with you with, but it might be easier for others who are also in the entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I really like that. It's what support are you looking for? And really being honest, is the person that you might want to go to really able to provide you that support? Because it is kind of unfair for them, to ask them for advice or skills that they might not have to give you, right? But
Exactly.
yeah, but I definitely do think the first thing is like talking about it, knowing who that you want to talk about these things. In the beginning, if we could kind of think back, what were your thoughts on attracting customers? What was that like in the beginning for you? And maybe how has that changed?
One of the things that I learned early on was who I wanted to work with. But as a therapist, as someone that works a lot with trauma and emotional regulation and anxiety and depression, it was figuring out like, okay, well, I want to do these certain things, but like, what is really the population that I want to work with? So I started to get really clear and really granular on basically the niche, right? On not only what are some of the struggles that people are going through, but who I want to work with. So once I did that, I was able to then market, right? And that's the place where it was like, what am I doing? What is this marketing piece? We all know about social media and things like that, but it's starting to like use social media not for the social aspect, but for the marketing aspect. So once I was able to go and do that, and let me tell you, everyone out there, when I decided to go and start my own practice, Natacha Pennycooke psychotherapy, I didn't have Instagram. I had Facebook, I had LinkedIn, and that was it. I didn't have a website, I didn't have Instagram, but then it's recognizing like I had to learn from a business coach. One of the great things that I got connected with a business coach and had to start learning how to market myself so I can attract the clients and the audience that I wanted to work with. And once I was able to do that, it was like the perfect fit. The clients were coming to me where I was like, oh, I really enjoy working with this person. Or I used to like think up different things and different tools and techniques that I wanted to try with this person or different skills that I wanted to teach this person because then the fit was right.
Mhm, mhm.
I think that's an important piece about any entrepreneur, not only if you're in psychotherapy, but anything is start to recognize like who do I want to work with? Why do I want to do this? And what is my ideal audience and client, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to flesh that out. Um, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
I think oftentimes, just kind of anecdotally, some folks think, I could help that person. That person is coming to me. I have the skills. I could help that person. And it's a way to get money in the door. But at the same time, they might not be the ideal person that you can help. It might,
That's
if you really had the chance to sit back, what that would mean for you.
yeah.
Uh, I definitely have experienced that in my prior business where it was accounting and tax and doing that kind of detailed work is often because, hey, Leanne, you're an accountant, you can help me, But when I really wanted to sit back and who is that client that I really wanted to serve, I wanted to serve certain communities that don't have the folks that they can talk to about money, about their business. Uh, and that really changes the nature of people who kind of come to you. So I think that's key, you know. So maybe in the beginning, it sounds like in the beginning you were really clear on who you wanted to work with. Maybe that comes from your back, like your professional training and background.
Well, I don't want to put it out there like it was like as if it was so easy. It really took me some time to sit back and to think. And again, like working with my business coach, being able to figure out who do I want to work with. Right. And I think that I did see a shift in when I started to get clients who are calling and who were emailing and being able to work with those specific clients. It really was a shift from, like you said, of course, I can help everybody. This is what I do. But being able to really find the clients that I wanted to work with was a big game changer. I'm big about talking about fit now in my practice in terms of talking about like as clients being able to find the best fit for therapy. Also, as a therapist, being able to find the best fit of a client to work with. Um, you had asked also, how did it change or how has it changed? I think it has changed. As you know, when I started out, I was a solo practitioner, solopreneur. And now I have a group practice. I have a group practice of 5 individuals. So I have one student and I have 4 other practitioners. So I think it's changed that the type of clientele now I'm seeing. I'm seeing um, business owners or I'm seeing high achieving professionals who are a little bit either in a senior executive role or they have their own business. So it has shifted a bit over time.
Your process for attracting those clients, has that changed as well too?
That's a great question. I've actually been thinking of late. I think my process changed, but I'm absolutely wondering if I need to go back to some basics.
Okay. Give some
Right?
more.
Yeah. So I've been thinking more of late that, like, because things have gotten busier, right? In the entrepreneur world, things are shifting and getting busier. So I've been thinking that some of the marketing stuff that I used to do to attract clients and clientele and my audience, I kind of let some things fall to the wayside because I got busy. But now that I have the time, because I have a fabulous assistant and I have other therapists now that I have the time to sit back and kind of reevaluate, I'm like, oh, I stopped doing some of these things. I think I need to go back to those basics.
I'm wondering at the beginning, how did you think about funding? Did you have some money set aside? Did you get some grants? You know, was it like, go for, I'm just going to go for it, and
So,
try not to go broke crying.
so I was the all in. I'm going for this. This is it. No plan B. Go for it. And I was able to, as you said, I was able to use my savings account to be able to fund my business. So I was in a position where I had savings, where I didn't have any debt, right? School loans were all paid off. So I was able to say, okay, I'm going to use this money that I've been saving, and this is now my business money. So I've been able to do that, which has been a blessing. I know now as I'm growing, I've been looking more into different grants. I know there's been a lot of different entrepreneur grants over the last little bit of time. So I've been actively looking and I've applied to a couple. Actually, I have one that I'm applying to at the moment. So starting to recognize that, okay, so my savings got me a certain way, but what can I do now? Now that I'm in it, now that I understand that there's grants for these kind of things, right? For entrepreneurs, for business owners. And again, these are things that I had no idea about when I started.
hmm hmm and grants and loans and all that kind of good way to help grow and scale and stabilize the practice, I think is really important. I find it successful that you were really self-funding. You were funded really by your customers, by your clients. So back then, how, or even now today, how are you thinking about prices and pricing? Because I often find that's an area for, especially like women founders, women entrepreneurs. That's where things get a little bit nervous, whatever money stories they might be telling themselves.
Yes, there's so much around like the dynamic of money and women and black women or racialized women or marginalized women where we struggle, right? We struggle to know our worth and how to put a price tag on it. We struggle to know our expertise and how to put a price tag on it. I think a lot of times, and especially early on, people were asking me to do different speaking things or to come in and do a workshop. And we're saying, you know what, we don't really have any money. I'm like, that's okay, I'll do it. But started to recognize that I had to change that mindset quite quickly because
Mhm,
what was happening is that I was doing a lot of stuff for a lot of individuals and being like, no, it's okay. The exposure is great. And don't get me wrong, anyone listening out there, the exposure is great. However, there's a certain time where it's like, okay, I need to get paid for my expertise, for my skill level. I think nowadays, especially with, over the course of pandemic, over the course of the social justice movements and the racial justice movements, starting to recognize that myself as a Black woman, being able to know my worth and my expertise, that is really important because I'm getting called in now, especially because I do a lot of speaking and corporate workshops. I'm getting called into different organizations who have money to pay. So I'm trying to figure out like, what is my worth? What is my expertise? If they were calling in a white male, what
mhm,
would they be gladly open to paying a white male? Right. So there's been a lot of mindset shift for myself in knowing my worth, my pricing. And you know what? This is where building a community of other entrepreneurs is really important to have those conversations. So you have someone to talk about and unpack those mindset blocks with because they will happen.
mhm,
They will happen. So it's really, really important to be able to do that. So for myself, the setting the prices, this is something where I've gotten better at. I'm better now at saying, "Hey, this is my rate," and not flinching or not being like, "No, no, no, I'll give you a discount."
It's tough. It's tough.
Eh,
I always love to coach women on negotiating for promotions and raises. And one of the things I often ask is like, amongst your girlfriends, amongst your peers, do you talk about how much you make? And it's very surprising how many people they don't really share that information. Either because of fear, that four-letter word coming up again. And I always try and probe them on what is the fear? Is the fear that maybe you think maybe you're paid really adequately and you might be paying less than the person that you're talking to, but this is an opportunity for you to teach and be like, hey, you should go after this to get your worth. But alternatively, I think it's usually the fear that you are making too little. And again, that is information. And with that information, you can make changes and you can make adjustments, right? You can learn how to negotiate. You can, talk to the person who had the role before or role in a different organization if it means it less than, but really find out what those salaries are.
for sure. I think that, I really like the point that you raised about we need to be talking more about what we make. We don't. There's like a taboo to it, right? Especially
Mhm,
from certain cultures and certain backgrounds. There's a taboo about talking about money, about how much you make. There's this idea that it could be like disrespectful or boastful or something like that, right? So I really, really agree with you that we need to be having these conversations really openly so we can understand what is it that I'm doing right or what is it that I need to do more of? How do I negotiate those prices? I think that is going to be something as entrepreneur, as women, as racialized folks, as marginalized folks that we do more of.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think it's just the practice and the skill. So I 100% agree with you. I think it was Lovey Ajayi Jones in her book, Professional Troublemaker. She was talking about how, she finds out who else is on the panel, you know, and says, I'll get back to you. And because she's cultivated networks and relationships, she'll call up that person and say, how much are you getting paid to be able to as a good gut check. So, and that information is being shared, I think is really important. I think that's things that we need to do on a more frequent and collaborative basis, for sure. For sure.
I agree. I agree.
So you have a team, you have a brilliant team. Can you tell me, how you went about doing that and what advice can you share?
Oh, yes. I have a fantastic team. I got to put that out there. I have a fantastic team of therapists and I have an excellent, yes, thank you, thank you. And I have an excellent, excellent assistant. So, how did this start? Oh, my goodness. I have to like search back in my memory bank. It started about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, about 13 months ago, where my business coach actually was like, "You need an assistant." I was like, I need an assistant. No, I can do it. She's like, no, your emails are backed up. This is backed up. People are looking for you. You're doing all your social media. You need an assistant. And just that idea, I grew up with the mindset of you have to do it all on your own. And I'm sure a lot of people resonate with that. So when I was told, like, you need to get an assistant, it didn't feel to me like growth. I had to check myself really quickly because initially it felt like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. Right. It felt a little bit like failure until I did that gut check. And I'm like, no, no, this is what growth looks like. Look at all the businesses and the people who are doing the thing. They have a team,
Mhm.
right? They have a team so they could scale, so they could bring ideas together. So first I needed to do that. And I love that we're like grounding all this in mindset because it really took a mindset shift for me. And then there was the okay, how do I go about finding someone that will jive with me, someone who understands my business, someone who's really good who's like people person, and I ended up interviewing, I think, 3 individuals. So I have a group of women that I had joined prior to looking for an assistant. Um, a group of Black professional business women, and we have a WhatsApp group. It's probably like a couple of hundred people on this group. So what I did, I went to the group, was like, "Hey, I'm looking for an assistant. Does anyone know of one? Could you recommend someone?" And out of there, 2 individuals reached out to say, "Hey, I'm a virtual assistant." I'm like, "Fantastic. Let's set up interviews." So the first person that I interviewed was only available for a short period of time. They were working between a 9 to 5 and everything. So I thought they were going to be fantastic, but it just wasn't going to work out for what I was looking for. And then the second person that I interviewed, it ended up working out. So what I did was like, okay, let's do a 2-week trial. Let's see how that goes. There's a lot of stuff like in my head. It was like, yeah, 2 weeks are more than okay to get someone up and running. I was mistaken. It took about a good, like, 3 months to get all the stuff right, getting, like, the email address, all that. I remember this is my first assistant. This is, like, my first team person on my team, so it was like, "Oh, I need another email for this person. Oh, we need to figure out, like, what is our communication system? Where are we gonna note things?" Like, so there's so much learning
Yeah.
for me to do. And honestly, it's been really, really good. Um, Actually, I'll share the story that a client called today looking for something. And I'm like, oh, I answered. They're like, oh, I can help you. They're like, no, no, I don't want to speak with you. I want to speak with my assistant's name. I don't want to speak with them. I'm like, okay, no problem. She'll get right back to you. And here I am. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this. Right now, having clients who are like, have really connected with their assistant. Our assistant is fabulous. I call her my client care coordinator, and she's been able to take care of clients. Clients want to speak with her. They feel seen and heard and validated, and she's been able to help people. So it's been so good being able to get over my own fears and switch my own mindset to build a team, right? So, my assistant, my virtual assistant was my first team member. And then as I've been building this practice, I onboarded other therapists to work with me. Well, that has been something. I handpick the therapists who are on my team. So I know I've recognized and realized that I know a lot of people. I have gone to various conferences with different people and different therapists. So the first therapist on my team is actually a friend of mine where I was just talking to her and telling her what I was doing, what I've been up to. And she said to me, she's like, Natasha, I would love to be on your team. Like, this is a colleague of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a colleague of mine who has more years of experience, who actually has taught a lot of the social worker therapists in the city, in the Toronto area. And she was able to say to me, like, hey, I would love to be on your team. We've gone to conferences together, we shared rooms together. And she was like, I would love to be on your team. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I would love to have you on our team. So she is now our couples therapist and our family therapist. She does also some individual therapy. She is absolutely fantastic. So she was actually the first therapist in the practice. She was in the practice seeing clients before I was even in the practice seeing. So it's so funny how this entrepreneur journey has happened over the course of the last year. And then from there, I had other individuals reaching out to me. One of the things that I realized that now being more front facing, right? Where people get to know me and get to know who I am. I had a lot of individuals who are therapists who are reaching out. So I've been able to have conversation and to get to see what individuals' values are and missions are and the way they view therapy and the approaches they use. And I've been able to um just to meet people and to understand where they're coming from. And then from that, I've been able to pick the rest of the therapists on our team.
Mhm. You said so much in there. I like that is really, really powerful. I want to just go over like the four things that I really took out of that. Eventually you're one person, you can't be doing everything. So you need to definitely look to hire. So that mindset to shift is very, very important. The time to bring someone on board, never really underestimate that time. You thought it was 2 weeks, but probably more like 3 months. And it's important to, in that shift, think about the delegation, think about the time it is to bring someone on board. I often find myself reminding myself that no one can hear what's going on in my head. And I need to communicate it.
I'm
And
still
I
reminding myself
think
that.
again, think about putting processes down to paper so that you can move them over and all that kind of great stuff. Um, Another one you talked about was that having other people allows you to think about the business. So your friend who's now, working with you on your team was the one who's really executing on client delivery. I think it's important for business owners to make that shift that they're not going to be always the one who are working with client delivery and to really spend time not just working in the business, but working on the business, which really leads me to your fourth point about, meeting people and thinking about how you want to shape the business and what that means for who next comes onto your team. So, I mean, like you could just have a book just about those points alone, like very, very, very insightful. So I'm just wondering about, how has your time really shifted at the beginning from working in the business to now working on the business?
This is something that I'm still like trying to tweak and hone and shift. And I think honestly, even though I say that, I think it's always going to be a tweak and shift of how I work in the business versus on the business. Um, I enjoy being a therapist. So I enjoy working in the business. I love it. So I have my days where I am the therapist in the business. I have my Fridays, my Saturdays. These are the days where my clients know that, hey, I'm going to have my session with Natasha. These are the days where I'm therapist on those days. But I actually had to scale back on some of the other days so I can get things done, right? So I can work on the business, on building the business. And what does that mean? And that was such a hard shift, such a hard shift. My coach and I were working on for a while on making me CEO days. So the days where I am the CEO of the business, where I'm getting the accounting done, where I'm getting the payroll done, where I'm getting fixing up the systems, where I am looking at the policies and the procedures, where I'm going through emails and understanding pain points that's happening in the business. So these are now what I do on my CEO days, right? And it took such a shift because I'm like, it's a whole day. I've seen clients, right? It's a whole day. But it's starting to recognize that, you know what, there's going to be clients, and the more that I can work on the business and getting all of these little things where it's fixing up the website or fixing up my terms and conditions or understanding what are the questions that keep getting asked. So let's put those in the FAQ, right? These are the areas now where I've been able to see, especially in the last couple of months where I've been sticking to my CEO days, where I've been able to see a lot more growth happening, where I'm able to like catch those pain points, where I've been able to say, "Hey," to my assistant, "This is happening. I'm noticing this. You've asked me this question 3 times. What clients are asking these? What's happening? Let's figure out."
Mhm.
Right? And one of the things that I have enjoyed about having these specific days is like one of my therapists actually said to me the other day where there was an issue that was happening and we were working to resolve this issue. the therapist had said to me that, Natasha, you know what? I really enjoyed the way you handled that problem. You didn't make me feel like made a mistake, that I was belittled. You came at it. She said to me, Natasha, you came at it from the fact of, okay, cool. What do we know from this? What's happening? This is an opportunity to learn. Let's build a system. Let's build a policy so this doesn't happen again. Who do we need to call, email? Do we need to email colleges? We need to get this information. So we have this information. So we know that if and when this happens again, we already have all of it. We've done the groundwork, right? And that's what I'm recognizing that, the first of anything, it's going to take a little bit. It's going to take some emails, some phone calls, some meetings, but then you have it and you can figure it out. So I've been doing that on my CEO days. Now I have my CEO days, being able to like take that time just to be like, okay, I'm working on the business so I can grow it. And it's been good. It's been good.
For me personally, Monday is my CEO day. It's not a day to see clients, but to work on the business. Like you said, I love that you said, look at the finances, look at the accounting, look at the payroll, you know, put together FAQs, what needs to be tweaked. I love that. I love that. So I'm hoping the listeners are really taking that away.
And I actually want to say to everybody, it's a continuous work in progress. I'm telling you all this now because I've gone through these pain points. I'm still going through pain points because all this is still new, right? It's just that recognizing, oh, I'm a couple of steps ahead and I'm learning from the things that I've done or didn't do. And I'm still learning that, hey, now that I've done this, now I have to follow up with this, and this. And it's still figuring out all of those pieces. But I think it's about having consistency, which has been difficult to build in, honestly, but consistency has been difficult. Um, but it's been really good about learning how to be consistent and also learning how to organize different. Because one thing as an entrepreneur, especially as you start growing within your business, it's organizing yourself differently from being a solo practitioner or being a solo business owner. Now having team, it's really important to organize yourself at that level and at the level where you want to be.
So what would you say is the big difference there? Now you're meeting also with your team members or, you know,
Yes, yeah. So one of the differences is, so I guess a great example is when it was, say, two practitioners, two therapists on the team, myself and my friend that I mentioned. My assistant and I met maybe once a week. We would speak every day or message every day. But now that we have a full team of five, my assistant and I would meet twice a week for an hour each. One on Mondays, one on Thursdays, where we go over like everything that's been happening. We have one day where we look at maybe the KPIs, or we're looking at what's been happening, looking at like the dashboard, which is really understanding like the client growth. We have a day where we're understanding what are the questions that's happening, what are clients are coming from where, right? So we have these 2 full hours spaced out at the beginning and end of the week to be able to plan. And I think as any team gets bigger, the planning that goes on behind the scenes, it's going to be more because there's more people to organize.
gotcha. Makes total
Yeah.
sense. So what's driving you to stay with it and keep going and build this practice?
So it's interesting. When I left the group practice that I was in, not the toxic one, but eventually I had left the group practice that I was in, that is run by a couple of colleagues and friends of mine. One of my colleagues gave me such a beautiful present. She gave me a really gorgeous person, this gold pen. Pen had engraved on the pen, no plan Bs. So I think one of the, yes, yes, yes. And it really meant a lot knowing that, I was working within that practice with my colleague and friend. And she was like, go, do your thing, go. And at that point, it was like, yep, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it on my own. And now I have a year later, have a group practice. So I think the motivator is really, it started out as, okay, left some place that wasn't good. I'm gonna show them that I can do this. But now it's really like, oh, wow, yeah, I can do this. And I think a big motivator is that I get to make my schedule, right? I'm in charge of my schedule of what I want to do. Of course, there are going to be really late nights, and I'm always thinking about my business, whether it's in the shower or while I'm cooking or driving to pick up my little one from school. Like, I'm always thinking about the business. but at the same time, it's mine. And I'm working on, I'm going from the value set and the principles and the mission that I really want to do. So that's one of the really big motivators that I'm really enjoying changing the face of psychotherapy and mental health on a global scale. And that is one of the biggest missions to be able to do this. Because I think historically, um, Black people, racialized folks, marginalized folks did not have access to therapy and to psychotherapy, right? Psychotherapy, if we think of like the historical figures of psychotherapy, we have like the Freuds and the Adlers, and these are white American males or white European males. I really am I'm really doing this to give a different face and a different spin on the field of therapy, on the field of mental health, because everyone has mental health and everyone needs to be able to have access to mental health care.
Yeah, I love that because I really think so much of business, particularly as business owners, is your why and your purpose, right? And to really translate that. And I love that it's bringing a different lens and a different approach. I have a really good friend. She loves to talk about African traditions,
Yes.
Ubuntu, all
Yeah.
those different things, like, just different ways, and not necessarily acclimatizing to the way things
Yes.
are, but to really introduce new things.
I love that. I love that. And it is to start to recognize that, the historical or the Eurocentric historical views of therapy, of psychotherapy, of mental health has not necessarily been helpful for a lot of racialized and marginalized folks. So being able to pull in Ubuntu or be able to pull in more an Afrocentric dynamic or anti-Black racism lens or a social justice lens, I think this actually lends more to what people are looking for nowadays, right? I talk a lot and actually introduced this with my team in one of our meetings that everyone talks about mindfulness, and that's really like up here in the mind, in the head, and what we're thinking about. But I think a lot of people forget soulfulness, that where that comes
Oh,
from, soulfulness, where you
wow.
do something and you feel it in your body. Like, this is what I want to go into. This is how it resonates. I'm not only thinking about it and it's detached from my being, but it's like part of me and my soul. And that's actually how I feel about this practice. Like, this is a part of me and my soul. I'm doing this from a soulful place.
Wow, I love it. I love it so much. So, you've told us so much. I really want to know what's next for you. What's next for Natasha? What's next for your practice? You touched on it a little bit. Anything else that you want to share?
Oh, what is next? Well, the team, I think right now, I would love to add one more therapist to the team. We are a team right now of all women, of all Black women. I would love to add a male to the team. So that's one thing. And I think another thing that we are working on collectively, a lot of our practitioners on the team have some fabulous ideas for different groups and different ways of healing. And I think that those are some of the things that we are working on and we're going to be really pushing forward next in the next little bit of time. So whether it is the summer or fall, um, or right before wintertime, we are going to be pushing out a lot of these different things. So whether it's different healing modalities, such as like groups or ways to connect, we're going to be doing a lot more of that. So I'm really, really excited of what we have going on in the practice. We've actually also opened up family therapy. So when I say family therapy, I mean like say, um, a mother, a sister, a brother coming in and doing therapy, right? So a lot of times we hear about couples therapy, which is like the partners, the romantic partners, but we started to do family therapy in the so that is something super excited. It's super exciting to know that there are people out there who actually want to heal as a family. Think about that, the generational healing that can happen. And
That
so
is
that
so powerful. I might have to be looking you up on that.
all right. All right. That's that. No problem. Listen, if you are ready, willing, our therapist is fantastic. She has like 30 years of experience. She's taught other therapists. She is fantastic doing family therapy. It's a definitely interesting dynamic, especially that we're doing it all virtually, right? And we're getting everyone in from wherever they are, maybe across Ontario, and bringing them together to say, hey, we're creating a healing space because that's really it. It's we want to create healing. in a way that resonates with people so we can have healed generations. Because I'm a firm believer that the best thing as a parent or someone teaching the next generation is to come from a healed place so that we can teach from a healed place, as opposed to continue on some of the legacies of hurt and pain that plagues a lot of our families.
Mhm. Okay, so bringing it back to you as business owner, you're talking to another woman. She wants to start a business, but might believe she's not qualified to do it. What can you say to them to get going?
First thing I say, I'm looking over here, go get Rachel Rogers' book. I have it
We
right
should
here.
all be millionaires. I know it. I know it.
Yes, go get Rachel Rogers' book. I walk around, my husband laughs at me because sometimes I'm like, I have an idea. I don't know what I want to do. And I'm just walking around with this in the house because I'm like, it'll seep through me. It's in here. It's in here. So go get this book. If you feel like you have an idea and you're not too sure and you're worried or nervous about what to do with it, I would definitely suggest read Rachel Rogers' book. Um, work on your mindset. Work on your mindset. You have an
Mm,
idea and you're scared and you're nervous. You're going to be scared and nervous. Let's not let the fear be the motivator or the driver. Let the fear take a seat in the back. That's what I say. Let the fear take a seat in the back and you go forward with your idea. Connect with people who've done this before, right? Get yourself a coach, get yourself a business coach, a branding coach, get yourself a coach to help you because we can't do this alone. Right? Remember how I said before where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. I can't do this alone. I need team. Actually, no, doing this alone is the thing that causes a lot of stress and nervousness and anxiety, but connect with other people, connect with people, get the help and know that you're worth it. Know that your idea is worth some,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes. So great. Such a great conversation. I have one last question for you. If you can complete it with one word. So the question is, to me, wealth is.
I was thinking about this one word. I'm going to try to like merge these two words into one. I think it's like generational mindset.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Generational mindset. Yeah.
Generational mindset. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Genocide.
Thank you so much, Natasha. It's been so great talking to you.
Thank you, Leanne. This has been such a great conversation.
This has been another episode of the No Boss of Me podcast. I'm Leanne Hanaway, money coach, wealth educator, and chartered professional accountant. If you have feedback on today's episode, don't forget to rate us and review us wherever you get your podcast. You can also DM us on Instagram at No Boss of Me. We'd love to hear from you. Please join us again next time for more on investing to build wealth, navigating personal finance, and talking to women entrepreneurs who are changing our world with confidence. Thanks for listening.